Hello and welcome back to Mayfair Prestige. Today we're going to be reacting to some videos that you guys sent me, because in our last videos actually have been doing quite well on TikTok, surprisingly. I didn't think it would do so well, but it's gaining some traction, which is great to see. And the comments, I've been reading them all and they're fantastic. Love the comments, keep them coming. So today we've been emailed some new videos. I have not seen these videos, I promise you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hit play on this MacBook and we are going to react to these videos. So let's see what we got.
The
Ferrari, I know that
was a swan song to the great mid-engined Ferrari V8, a celebration of Ferrari's rise to the pinnacle of internal combustion performance.
Okay, well it's a mid-engine V8, I know that much, and I think this is Rory Reid.
That was yesterday. Today,
that was yesterday,
we live in a far more eco-conscious world, one that's making big, thirsty V8 engines, even the ones in Ferraris, extinct. Fossils fueled by other fossils. Times have changed, and so Ferrari faced a decision: evolve or die.
I got an idea what this is. From what he said about all this fossils and this must be the 296, and I really like this car. It looks amazing. You know, actually got a lot to say about Ferrari V8, so let's carry on the video and I'll let you know my thoughts.
And for their new car, the 296 GTB, Evolve is exactly what they've done.
Yeah. Looks
this would have been a screaming V12.
This looks amazing.
A screaming V8, but this is different.
What we have here is a Ferrari going down a Spanish road.
Funny enough, this is not V8. This is actually a V6 with a hybrid. So they've actually dropped the V8s, which were in the last, I don't know how many mid-range, mid-engine Ferraris that they made were all V8s, but this one's actually a V6. Looks incredible.
In complete silence. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the sound of progress.
Ferrari's new rear mid-engine Berlinetta dumps the 3.9-litre V8 found in the F8 in favour of a 2.9-litre V6, hence the name. It works alongside an electric...
You know, Ferrari have a funny history with mid-engine cars, in my opinion. All I can give you guys is my opinion, but I am the car expert, so you better listen to it. It's very important, my opinion. It's the only opinion that counts out there. If you go back to the mid-engine cars, they mess up two and get the third one right. See, they did it again with the V8. If you think about it, or this is actually a V6, but if you look at the mid-engine cars, shall we say, forget the size of the engine. If you go back to, let's say, the 308, 328, not great, the 348, not great, and then the 355, they got it right. So they missed two, got it right. And then you go 360, 430, they kind of got it nearly right, 458, nailed it. Then if you go from 458, 488, screwed it up, F8 nearly right, and now this 296, it looks like they've got it right again. So it's funny how Ferrari goes through this pattern of like three cars to get the third one in the series right, and that's my opinion. But I think this actually won out of, let's say, the 488, the F8. I think the 296 is the one. So yeah, they've nailed it again like they did with the 458 and the 355 before that.
And a small battery pack to drive the rear wheels. Total output is an astonishing 830 horsepower.
Wow, 830 horsepower. I mean, this thing must be an absolute beast. I mean, that is incredible horsepower. If you think it was only, let's say, 2014, which is what, 7-8 years ago, I mean, they were giving out, what, 600 horsepower in the 458 and the Speciale, and now they're up to 830 horsepower. I mean, it's incredible amount of power coming from these cars, especially with a V6
110 engine. More than the Tributo. Powerful, it also has other advantages.
You're gonna hate me for saying this, but it's really quite nice in here. Honestly, it starts up in hybrid mode by default, which means that it doesn't use the internal combustion engine.
Yeah, I had the SF90 and I've driven the SF90, and that has this, and obviously this is like a scaled down version of that maybe. And even though that's 1,000 horsepower and there's not much off 830 and 1,000, but it starts off in electric and then comes in. It's quite weird when you're first in the car and then you've just got nothing, and then suddenly the engine comes in. So it is quite a unique experience when you drive one.
Pull away from a standstill in complete silence without annoying your neighbours. And then when you're on the move, it's super smooth and extremely quiet. I tell you what, it's actually a bit like driving my £4,000 second-hand Nissan Leaf. No offence, Ferrari, except this one costs £241,550.
241 grand. It's a lot of money, but look, they'll sell them. I mean, Ferraris, but cars now are expensive. So if you look at it that way, it's a great car. Looks amazing. I have to say they got the shape right again. Because they kind of lost the shape, in my opinion, in the 488. And then they got the kind of shape better in the F8. And now they've got the shape right in this 296. They really nailed the look.
Switches on the steering wheel that control the car's behavior. The one on the right hand side is the traditional Manettino, and I'm sure most of us will know what that does. You can select wet, normal, race, CT off, everything off. And the one on the right is the E-Manettino, which controls how the electric drivetrain behaves. There's electric drive, which is batteries only, there's hybrid, and then there's performance, which is when the internal combustion engine just wakes up to remind you that it's there. And then there's qualifying, which is where you get the full beans. We're going to experiment.
Qualifying sounds good. Full beans is always good.
With that on a racetrack in just a while. But I just want to knock it back into electric drive for a moment, because this is a real novelty, an electric Ferrari. Do you know what? I know a lot of you out there will have worried about what an electric Ferrari might feel like, but let me reassure you, that's really nice.
The battery has a gross capacity of 7.46 kilowatt hours, and that gives it an EV-only range of 25 kilometers. It takes around 2.5 hours to recharge at home. I don't know how many Ferrari owners will care about driving it in EV mode or saving fuel, but it does help with that too.
I do like this interior as well. It's really nice. It's like being in a mini SF90. You've got a lovely...
Yeah, he just said it, like a mini SF90 with the new screen, new haptic buttons. I mean, Ferrari interiors are really nice, and they've really stepped up their game with their interiors, whereas before, you know, they were very much of a muchness. You didn't know which... You could have been in any Ferrari because they were all the same inside, but now the new interiors, I think they've really done a great job.
Curved display in front of you. I do love this stitching, the leather, everything looks like it's been really well crafted. The steering wheel looks absolutely phenomenal.
Looks lovely.
The seats are a little bit on the hard side, but very supportive, and we can live with it. All in all, it's a pleasant place to hang out. There's even Apple CarPlay, not just on the driver's screen, but also on an optional passenger screen, which is a nice touch. One of the things I don't like is the fact that the steering wheel houses almost all of your controls, your indicators, your lights, your wipers.
Yeah, that is one thing with Ferraris. If you guys have never driven a Ferrari, everything is on the steering wheel. So your indicators are there, your windscreen wipers are there, everything is there. And sometimes if you know, like me, jump from one car to another, I find myself like looking for the indicator like I would in a normal car, and then forgetting that they're on the button. And it's like, oh my God, everything's there. But look, when you do get used to it, and it is your own car, because obviously I'm jumping in and out of different cars, but I suppose when it is that car that you drive mainly, it's going to be second nature to you just to find these buttons. So, you know, as much as to start with it's a bit confusing and you get a little bit, but look, when you know, with one every day, I'm sure it becomes, you know, second nature.
And a lot of these controls are touch only, and sometimes they're not illuminated. It's not as elegant a solution as it could be.
And while there is clear evolution and forward thinking in this car's powertrain, some might argue Ferrari has looked backwards in terms of its styling. The 296 takes inspiration from the old 250 LM made between 1963 and 1965. Only 32 examples were ever built, but its influence is clear, from the wraparound windscreen to the distinctive rear haunches and flying bridge at the back, which showcases the new engine under a glass deck. It might be a small, low-mounted V6 flanked by high-voltage cables, but its presence is no less impressive. The rear, meanwhile, uses angular rather than rounded lights and a centrally mounted exhaust.
I really like that set. I really like what they've done with the exhaust.
Fiber diffuser to create uninterrupted downforce.
Here we go again, down. We're not going into downforce again.
On the subject of downforce, there's a host of clever little touches dotted
around
this car that help to manipulate the air. The first of which is the T-tray. This area at the front. It's actually not big enough to accommodate a cup of tea or my Americano, but it is very clever. Its purpose is to create pressure on the front of the car and to guide the air underneath the vehicle, where it's further manipulated by the underfloor vortex.
Rory is now giving us a science lesson in aerodynamics.
These headlights, which look great and are positioned as far off to the edges of the car as possible, just inboard of which we have these funky looking DRLs, and then just below those is quite a massive hole. You can actually get your entire fist.
Rory's now trying to do some acting. I think maybe that's why Top Gear dropped it.
Emotional damage!
Maybe acting wasn't his number one thing, putting his hand in Okay.
It's through. No, don't worry, I'm okay. The purpose of that is actually to funnel air onto the brake calipers, keep the brakes cool.
Funneling air onto brakes is very important. Whereas before we discussed aerodynamics, and I was talking about mechanical grip as opposed to aerodynamics, but we're not going to get into that again. But funneling air to your brakes is so important, especially on carbon ceramics that are vented. That is probably the most important thing to funnel air to, because if you are going to track one of these cars, or you really are going to, use this car viciously and drive it quite aggressively, cooling the brakes is very important.
If we then look towards the top section of the car, what you'll notice is there isn't a fixed rear screen that runs from the roof to the back of the car, which means that it can be difficult to manipulate the air onto the rear spoiler. So Ferrari had to figure out a plan to deal with that air. And their solution was to create this rear wing, which guides the air through a notch and works in conjunction with these two buttresses on either side.
You know what, this car, even though it's the Berlinetta version, which is the hardtop, it actually looks the same shape as the back, because when you look at, let's say, a Spider version of a Ferrari as opposed to a Berlinetta version, the Spider version is always more flatter at the back, which is what this has. And that look I like a lot. So that look that they've given this car, I mean, ignore Rory and his physics lesson, but that look that they've given the car I think really, really suits it, because the Spider version for me always looked better than the coupe version.
A virtual windscreen. Plus it has the added benefit of dissipating heat away from this chimney area in order to keep this rear deck cool. Once the air reaches the back of the car, it's dealt with by this rear spoiler and this deployable rear wing. All of these elements work really well together, but if nothing else, they just look incredibly cool.
Yeah, they do look cool. Car looks amazing.
But the big question is, how does this evolution affect what Ferrari is best known for? Do the core changes detract from the core principles? Truly, there's only one way to assess that, and not in a normal road car.
Rory's got his crash
This one
helmet.
uses the £25,000 Assetto Fiorano package. It comes with adjustable multimatic shock absorbers optimized for the track, carbon fiber wings on the front bumper.
My thought on this Assetto Fiorano, don't spec it. I think sometimes it's there and people think,
oh my God, I really need to spec this.
but I think if you are predominantly going to use this car, which it should be used for road use, because let's face it, it might be 250,000 list, but the time you spec one of these cars, and the option list on Ferraris, believe me, I've done it, are not cheap. You do the carbon this and the Apple CarPlay and the nose lift and all the other bits you want. You can probably be pushing 300,000 with one of these, and that's a lot of money to start, tracking the car. There's better cars out there for less money that you can still enjoy on a racetrack. So if you are going to buy one of these, in my opinion, and like I said before as the expert, is don't spec that Assetto Fiorano. Even though it sounds cool, I've got the Assetto Fiorano. I think it's going to make the road use of the car much stiffer, rougher, and not as enjoyable as if you left it off and actually just used it for B roads and fun driving on an actual road use as opposed to track use.
To deliver an extra 10 kilograms of downforce, a lightweight Lexan rear screen, Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2R tires, and more extensive use of carbon fiber in and outside the car that results in a total 12 kilogram weight saving.
12
Time to see what that means for performance.
It's like 12 bags of sugar.
Okay, well here we are out on the circuit, trying to feel exactly what this car is all about down the main straight. It is super quick.
Now we're going to see how good Rory is a driver.
So the headline figure is 830 horsepower. However, starting things off in performance mode, they sacrifice around 50 horsepower in order for the car.
Why would he start in performance mode? Why wouldn't you just go straight to this, like whatever they called it, track or whatever mode, because you're on a track anyway? I mean, you got the use of the track, may as well get all the horses out of the car.
To keep a consistent level of power. Now, I'll tell you what, it's still not bad having 780 horsepower to play with, and it does feel remarkably quick. So, headline acceleration figures 0 to 62 in 2.9, so the same speed as the F8 Tributo, but when you start building up a real head of steam, is when it starts to really, really pull away. Woo, she's lively. Also 124.
You know why they might have gone V6 as well? Because if you go V8 hybrid, or sometimes when you go like these V8 turbos, which they've done with the 488 and the F8, sometimes because the turbo's taking so much of the power, you lose a lot of exhaust note. But I think with the V6 that they've done in this car, because it's going to get a lot more revvy and a lot more kind of bitey, because the engine's going to much more, you know, high pitch, you're going to get probably a much better exhaust note out of this car than you would, let's say, the F8.
0.3 seconds quicker.
Okay,
than the F8.
I mean, it looks a great car. I'm getting bored of watching Rory, to be honest with you, which is understandable. Auto Traders should get a new presenter. Maybe me would be a lot better. We all make mistakes. What can you do? But look, in conclusion, amazing car. I think Ferrari have got it right with this one, which is a big thing to say because they're really good at getting it right with their front engine stuff, but their mid-engine stuff, they got it wrong twice, but got it right again the third time. Like I always tell you, they got it perfect with the Speciale. I still think I'd have a Speciale over this. I'd have a Speciale over anything. If you're looking at mid-engine V8s, the only one, Speciale. But this, if you want the new, the modern, the up-to-date, this is the one. Amazing car. Love it. Absolutely think it looks amazing. Sounds great. Drives brilliant. So, yeah, looking forward to getting one into stock. If you are looking to sell your 296 GTB, phone me. I'll buy it. All right, that's it.
I had one for you.
Yeah, I know, but at the right price. Yeah?